Today we'll turn the pocket scarf made in the previous video into a Scoody. We're already at this point. If you haven't made yours yet, you need to consult the free pocket scarf video pattern. And today we'll get to this point. A reminder, what I'm actually giving you in this series are the real numbers for an adult pocket scarf and hood. But what you're watching me knit is actually 3/4 size, just to make the filming easier. It looks about normally proportioned here because I'm using a very petite dress form. My tailor's hem is substituting for the real head, which gives you an idea of the proportions because it looks proportionately correct. Find the center of the scarf by folding it in half. I've placed a piece of orange yarn at my halfway point. Mark a 20-inch span with the center of the scarf at the 10-inch mark, and we will be sewing a hood onto this 20 inches. Cast on 80 stitches using any neat cast on that you like, and knit 72 rows. I began in gray to match the pockets, and partway through switched to the variegated yarn to match the scarf, and the effect came out pretty nicely. Just bind off using any neat method that you prefer. Here I'm binding off around the gate pegs, which is a good choice. So to recap quickly, we have just knitted a rectangle that will become the hood. Nothing more complicated than that. When the other side of the work is reached and you're ready to snip the yarn, leave a good long tail, long enough to use to sew the hood right onto the edge of the scarf. That will make one less yarn tail to weave in. Lift the work off of the machine and give the knitting a little bit of a lengthwise pull to set the stitches. Now we'll sew the cast on portion of the hood to the span along one side of the scarf that we marked earlier. I used gray yarn markers, and you just saw me pull the one out on this end. Just before pulling it out, I used the yarn tail threaded into the needle to secure the end of my sewing yarn to the correct position for the first edge of the hood. You can use any seam that works for you and align the edge of the hood, the lower edge, the cast on edge, with the correct span on the scarf. I find it works very well to whip stitch through an entire column of stitches at the scarf fold and under the cast on, but quite a few seams can look nice. Also, you saw me winging it for aligning the length. I had checked and double checked, and I was quite sure it would work. If you don't feel that confident, there's nothing wrong with pinning or basting. We can dispense with the second yarn marker now. It's done its job, and secure the end. I do knot it and then weave in the yarn tail, and it's easy as pie because it can just go between the two layers of the scarf and be snipped off. It'll never be seen again. There's only one more step now, and that's to sew the top of the hood together. Fold it so that the two edges align, and there's a fold at the center back of the head. The two edges will frame the face. I do knot the beginning to make sure that that seam is secure, and then again, any neat seam will do the job. I think back stitch is a good choice, and when I back stitch, I like to work just behind the bind off. It's both secure and good looking. Seam all the way across the top of the hood. When you get to the last couple of inches, there's an interesting option. This style of hood will naturally come to a point at the back of the head. If you would rather that it not, do a running stitch rather than whatever you were doing, and gather it up a little bit. I'm going to let it come to a point, but that gathering will blunt the point if you don't like it. Since I did a running stitch up to there to demonstrate, now I'm backtracking and backstitching the remainder of my seam so it will be secure in the way that I want it to be. When the seam is finished, weave in the tail and snip it off in the usual way. Here's what it will look like if you use the seam that I did. And that's all there is to it. The hood is finished. It looks as though there is an edge finish on it, but there's not. The illusion is caused by the fact that stockinette knitting rolls to the purl side. All we had to do to get that effect without it being a problem is give enough extra width to the hood that once it rolled under, it was still a good size. So that's what we did. This scarf is a close relative to the Scoodies in my other Scoody books, which may also interest you. Single bed Scoodies is what it says it is, multiple styles, but all can be made on one bed. Special Scoodies all have a little something extra. It may be lace, it might be the use of a river for double bed work. 2 of these are character Scoodies, the snake and the puppy dog. I'll put links to the sale pages for these books in the program notes so you can find them if you want them.